So at Oyu Tolgoi, we always meetings and conversations with the safety share. And I wanted to just talk a little bit about why that's so important to our company and to our culture. Safety shares allow us to start our conversations focused on safety and making sure that we all go home safely and healthy at the end of every day. We focus on that progress that we instill in all of our workers, that if the job is not safe, that we don't continue. We allow them to, all of us, to stop work if we don't feel safe, to reassess and to move forward. And that focus has really driven excellent performance to the point that the Oyu Tolgoi open pit mine is one of the, has one of the best safety records within Rio Tinto and in the world. And that culture is what we're driving into the underground project and forward into the future. The presentation today is to talk a bit about some of the underground mining methods that there are around the world. And before we get started, just want to just touch on that this presentation really is to support everyone's understanding of what we're doing at Oyu Tolgoi and what we're trying to help everyone gain a better understanding of underground mining, especially block caving, as it's new to Mongolia and there aren't a lot of mines around the world that do block caving. And as such, we want to help everyone to learn. So we'll go through first the underground mining methods and what they mean to ore body recovery and how we can extract the most ore from the underground or from underground or surface, and then we'll touch on some of the operations around the world that we can learn from their experience over the many decades that they've been working. In underground mining, there are three general methods of mining: stoping, sublevel caving, and block and panel caving. Stoping is one of the highest operating costs, but it can be very selective and adapted to a varying number of ore bodies. If you see on the right-hand side of the slide is a typical stope layout. The size of the stopes, meaning the height, width, and length of the stopes, is dependent on geotechnical conditions. It can be quite small to very large, depending on the stability of the rock mass. Now, the size and number of those active stopes drives the overall productivity. And because they're limited by the number of tons that can be drilled and blasted out of each of the stopes, stoping mines generally produce less than 10,000 tons a day, though there are exceptions under the right geotechnical conditions. All stopes are generally backfilled with cemented rock fill or cemented paste from tailings facilities. And that backfilling of the stopes to re-support the void that has been created is one of the higher cost processes underground and also incurs a significant schedule to complete the activity. Essentially with stoping, every void that is opened up is then backfilled with rock afterwards. And so it provides a fairly stable opportunity, and it does not cause any subsidence on surface. The stope mining, though it has a high operating cost, has one of the lowest capital costs because you don't need a lot of infrastructure to start the mine. You're only producing a few thousand tons a day. And so the capital can be very low. But as I said, the operating cost is high because you must drill and blast every ton that is produced, and you have to then replace that rock with waste rock and concrete. Sublevel caving is used in vertically continuous ore bodies, which is the center picture on the slide. Sublevel caving mines generally average between 15 and 20,000 tons a day, so about twice as big as what stoping mines generally produce. Every ton that is produced in a sublevel cave, similar to stoping, must be drilled and blasted. The significant difference is that the you allow the material above the drilled and blasted areas in the sublevel cave to cave and to fill in those voids, rather than backfilling with cemented rock fill or paste. A sublevel cave is very similar to the undercut level on a block or panel cave, but it's repeated over and over, stacked one on top of another as you slowly move from top to bottom, caving the material and extracting the ore below. This does cause subsidence on surface, as that caved material falls into the void and creates cracks and crevices that then make their way up to the surface. Sublevel caving has a reasonably high capital cost because it has more infrastructure when compared to stoping. And that infrastructure then is there to support the higher productivities. But it has a fairly low operating cost because of the number of tons that can be produced. Block and panel caving are used for mass mining of large-scale ore bodies that are vertically continuous. Generally, caving requires a weak rock mass so that it can cave to surface, though there are some exceptions when using hydrofracturing methodologies to break the rock before the cave begins and destabilizes the rock mass. Production of block cave mines ranges anywhere from about 15,000 tons today to more than 150,000 tons per day, and in some instances well beyond that, depending on the ore body and the number of active caving areas available. There is no production blasting required after the undercut and drawbells have been fired in a block cave mine, greatly reducing the operating costs. Additionally, as the ore is broken and caves through to surface, as the ore moves down towards the draw points on the extraction level, the ore causes self-comminution, or rather it grinds itself, meaning that when you pull it from the draw point on the extraction level, the rock is smaller and reduces costs for crushing and grinding compared to other methods, as the rock is doing the work for you, rather than putting it into a mill or a crusher. Caving, like sublevel caving, does cause surface subsidence as the void is filled by the broken rock above. Caving has the highest capital cost of these three underground mining methods, but it has the very lowest operating cost, significantly lower operating costs. And the capital costs, even though high in the early stages, can be paid back relatively quickly because block and panel caves generally have a high production of ore and high productivity overall, offsetting those capital costs. When we look at these mines side by side, these mining methods side by side, their costs really drive our ability to recover each of them. In the top left, we see a possible resource recovery using some generic data on a large copper porphyry ore bodies. As you can see, stoping and sublevel caving have a generally similar recovery, where caving can target much more ore because of its significantly lower cost. The big difference as well is that the annual production of each of these mines can be significantly different. In a stoping mine, like I said, it's generally less than 10,000 tons per day, where sublevel caving is generally 15,000, where caving can be significantly higher. You can see between sublevel caving and stoping, their annual copper production is fairly similar, could be around 100,000 tons per day per year of copper. However, caving can produce an order of magnitude more than that, essentially. 5 times more, and significantly improve the overall recovery and the cash flows. If we were to look at a large ore body, if we were to stope it at a rate of about 7,500 tons per day, we would end up with an 85-year mine life, where caving is about a quarter of that, where you could produce for about 20 years. Looking around the world at modern mechanized block and panel caving operations, there are not many. In North America, we have New Afton and Henderson mines. And in South America, we have the Codelco mines. Jeez. Let me try my presentation again. All right, hopefully that's better. As I was saying, good. Okay. We've got many operations in South America under Codelco. There are some diamond caving mines in South Africa, with Palabora being a copper mine, and mines in Australia and a few in Asia. Really, the centers of excellence for caving are in Indonesia for Freeport's Grasberg mine, and what is the presentation?
Yeah, your presentation is not on the screen. Please just.
Let's share again. It seems to be having an issue. Just a moment. Okay. Can we see it again? Yes. Okay. But essentially, the main centers of excellence in caving are at Freeport's Grasberg mine in Indonesia, in the Cadia Valley between North Parkes and Cadia mines in Australia, and the mines in Chile that Codelco runs. Looking at comparable operations to Oyu Tolgoi, we see that in order to achieve large throughputs, it requires more than one cave. Caves like Henderson and New Afton are producing 15 to 35,000 tons a day. They have a single caving area. When we start looking at places like Grasberg and Cadia, there are 2 to 3 and more caves producing significant throughputs. Oyu Tolgoi, with the 3 planned panels and in the caves, we are planning to produce 95,000 tons a day. El Teniente in Chile, Chuquicamata in Chile, both are producing over 140,000 tons per day from 6 to 7 caves. And the Grasberg block cave that's recently started in the last few years is 3 active caves, moving to 5 for a planned rate of 160,000 tons per day. One important thing to note as well is that Oyu Tolgoi is very deep. When looking at other mines, it's 1,300 meters deep, and those stresses do cause a lot of engineering challenges, and all of the caving mines are dealing with them and planning for them and working around them. If we look at those comparative caving operations, the Cadia East mine is about an 80,000 ton per day mine, producing from three lifts. And the 2 general tactics employed by all of these operations is to deal with the large scale stresses in ore body recovery, is planning over multi-level caves and pillars between the blocks on the same elevation. As I said, Cadia and El Teniente mines are built up on multiple cascading elevations. As you can see on the very left-hand side, multiple caves overlapping each other to make sure that they extract all of the resource. That maximizes productivity and minimizes the ore loss between the different mining blocks. Chuquicamata has taken a different tactic and placed pillars between each of their macro blocks to separate, to separate production activities and to improve the caving performance. They're also planning multiple levels to improve productivity and recovery. The Grasberg block cave mine does not currently plan to use pillars between mining areas, but they are generally not as deep as OT and some of these other large-scale caves. So and they're underneath a large pit, which causes different stress interactions. But as you can see across the board, we use a couple of tactics. We use cascading levels as we go relatively deeper, and we also place pillars between each of those ore bodies. Now, I'd like to thank you, and we'll go from there.